Hi everybody, why don't you join me for a walk? I do like to get out now and again and not only get some exercise and fresh air, but get some inspiration for some textile artwork. You can see here I've come down to the local river. It's a bit of an estuary. You can see that it's got mangroves in the foreground. That's really nice. I like that pier. I like the water moving. It's very, very peaceful. The water laps against the shore. It's all very monochromatic in a way. It's very grey and muddy looking, but I like it. There's a blue in the sky. There's some blue in the reflection of the water. The sand itself is not pure white like you would get at the beach. It's more of a muddy, mottled, sandy colour with those lovely mangrove shoots coming up. They're the beginnings of new trees. And on the far bank of the river we can see that there's a lovely little headland there. So that's what I'm trying to reproduce. So I've got my inspiration. Let's see what we can come up with. I've got a lovely piece here of just plain grey organza, and I'm cutting out shapes in it that are reminding me of those lovely sparkles on the water. I want to try and recreate that, the sun shining on the water. And it's very rare that you get a straight edge on the bottom, so I've cut a nice rounded kind of edge, a sort of a ragged edge. Now I'm trying a piece of blue material underneath. It didn't really do it for me, so here I am trying something really silvery to see how that looks. Well, that's really pretty interesting. I do get the shine of the sun there. The other two pieces you can see are some ripped slate blue-grey kind of strips from some patchwork fabric. Now here I've grabbed a really beautiful sheen. It's a two-tone, blue and gold. Stunning. And I'm trying it over top of the grey. That didn't quite work. So now I'm trying it on top of the silver. And see how you're still getting some of that shine through, but it's calmed it down a bit. I think if I place that towards the top part and had the really silvery bits down the bottom, it would give me a graduated kind of look to that, which is what I'm after. The sunniest bits were at the shore. So once again, I don't really like to have those straight edges. I'm just cutting a bit of a curve in this. And now I go about the stage of just trying different things. And this is the fun of it. We just have a go. You don't know what's going to work. You don't know what you have. Look in your stash. Grab your stuff from the op shop. Cut up old clothes. It's open. It's totally open. Start looking at fabric as what it could be, what it looks like, not what it is, if you know what I mean. You can take a small section of the fabric and it might look completely different. Now I've grabbed some blue. This is a linen, very gauzy fabric that I have hand dyed into a blue and white. I use this quite a lot. And I've grabbed some white linen as well. And can you see if I tease it here and poke and pinch, that it really does look kind of like the frothy area as it was lapping. You know, it was lapping against rocks and it really did have a little bit of a splash. So that's creating the splash. So I'll continue on trying different things. I've just added something that is a patchwork fabric that's mottled and it's sort of sandy coloured but also with that brown in it. So I like that it sort of, you know, recreates that muddy kind of sand look. I've grabbed another piece of gauze. This one's a goldy colour. I like this because, you know, you can put a different colour underneath. Here with the blue linen underneath, it's showing through and it's giving us a touch of blue. Now I grabbed some different yarns and things to see what might work. And it could be on top, it could be underneath. Some bits of it might poke through those little holes there and add that little special touch. This is your artwork, you know, your interpretation of what you saw on your walk. It's really a personal thing as to what it reminds you of and recreating the feeling that you had. Now, I could have chosen a lot of things from that walk that I wanted to show, but this is what's grabbed me. So I'll continue layering different things and seeing what I see. And I've grabbed some light blue. It's got a bit of a sparkle too, that yarn. And I'll probably couch some bits of that on the front, just to sort of give it that little touch of blue. I'll probably bring a little bit more blue in with the embroidery threads that I use as well. I'll be slow stitching, you know, just those simple stitches that we use with no pattern in mind. This is a textile artwork that is your interpretation of what you saw on your walk. So once I've completely decided what I'm going to want here, and haven't quite yet, but you know, then I would like to suggest that you get a surround, a photographic surround, if you're going to frame it, and try that. Have a look at it. It is completely different when you put a surround around it. It suddenly makes you focus on the bit that is the picture. You may not like it that way. You might want it in landscape format or on the tilt. You know, try a different focus on different areas of it and just see what appeals to you. It really helps to narrow down your focus to the bit that you're interested in. It gets rid of all the excess things so that you can just sort of concentrate on what you're looking at. So let's have a closer look. You can see, yeah, that shine is really showing through that grey gauze. So that's what I was after, something like that. Oh, and don't forget the headland or the bank of the river, the other side. I've used really thick green yarn here, the wool, that I thought that looks sort of bushy, that would do. How are we going? So we grab it again and we have a look. Now I'm going to speed this up and start stitching. Right, you might have noticed that before I started here, I actually went over to my sewing machine and I did a line down both sides. They're not going to show, they're going to be underneath the matte frame, but it will hold those strips down. I also did a few meandering lines across from left to right and back again, and that also holds down some of it. And then I get out my stranded cottons. I chose some blues and I'm just working my way across, holding things down and slow stitching my way across with just an ordinary running stitch. Maybe I'll put in a few French knots to suggest trees. So when you finish with one colour thread, just go through to the back, do a couple of stitches on top of each other, and that will anchor it. So I'm going to fiddle here, going backwards and forwards. I actually did do a couple of French knots on the green thread at the top there, that yarn, and that's my trees, suggesting trees on the far bank. I'm going to go backwards and forwards, making sure I'm getting everything attached down. I'll use darker blue at the top and I use a lighter blue at the bottom, and I just meander backwards and forwards, making sure I've got everything down. Sometimes I'll couch a thread down, sometimes I put some of that novelty thread underneath the gauze to have different layers happening, different colours, different shades. So I think you can pick up in the light here the different shine that we have, and that's the main thing that I was trying to interpret from my morning walk, was that lovely feeling of that light hitting the lapping water and the shine off the water, and just the general feeling of peace of the lapping waves. So I'm nearing the end here. What I would like to try and suggest is that we're just having fun. We don't have a solid plan, and we're just doing very, very simple stitches and playing with fabric. And in that way, this is still a slow stitch project because the stitches are very, very simple. About now, I'm thinking about how I want to finish this off. And I start to think I might like to just add a little something to that foreground. It's very good to have that in mind, that you have a background, a middle area and a foreground. And in the foreground, I'd like to add some of the rocks that were there. So I grab a material that's a mottled green and brown, and I cut out some small rounded shapes and pop them on. It's always better to have 3 or 1 or 5 instead of just 2, side by side. Stagger them so that it looks more natural. Now I'm just going to attach them very simply, a seed stitch, just a stitch here and there, so that it'll look like marks on the rocks. And then as I go across, I'm going to add in a few, just simple long stitches. This is in a dark brown, and I want that to sort of almost be like those mangrove seedlings that were coming up out of the water. So here we are. The finishing touches are going on. We've got ourselves a lovely little landscape here to remind us of, well, remind me of my morning trip. You will have a totally different picture of what you have seen, and that's what it's all about. We're having a close-up look now at some of the details in there. Nothing too fancy, but it just gave us an all-over feeling and memory of what we saw this morning. So simple. So here it is completed, and I've put it back with the mat board surround around it so that I get the total look of how it's going to appear when it's in its frame. I think that we might do a few more of these little walks in the future and try and reproduce what we've done. It's good to get out into the fresh air and enjoy a walk, get the exercise, and get the inspiration for your next fabric art piece. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you're interested in seeing more of this kind of work. I hope you've enjoyed it. My name's Tracey Campbell and my business is called Art Fiber Stitch. You can find me at www.artfiberstitch.com and on my Etsy shop. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you next time.